Welcome back to Off the Curb. I got a pile of Sparty Gruff quarter zips at my feet and one on my back here. So I got to say I'm the best dressed Spartan in Spartan Nation, at least for one day. So this is a good friend of ours, David Klein, coming back to us in different form. Normally I have your giant, beautiful body before me, but here you're just in a little box, man. But it's good to be with you in some form, I got to say.
Nice to see you, brother. Appreciate
Yes.
it. There's been a lot of movement for basketball this offseason, or maybe a lack thereof, and a lot to talk about. So
I feel like this will not be the last time I bug you. But so let's start with the obvious, I guess, place to start. I was surprised when Julius Marble's news came out, when his announcement is posted to his Instagram. Not the most shocked I've ever been, but top 10 in terms of player movement within the program. So we'll start there. I'm going to throw his statement out there, and then I want to get your reaction to it. So Ben pulled this from IG. Ben, if you can throw that up there. So this is Julius Marble via Instagram. Spartan Nation, thank you for an amazing 3 years. I want to thank Coach Izzo as well as the coaching staff for everything they've done for me. I would also like to thank my teammates for always being there for me. Love y'all boys. With all that being said, I got to find the best situation for me and my family, so I've decided to enter my name into the transfer portal. So there's Marble. Where's David Klein on this? I was surprised. Did this surprise you?
I think surprise is a fair word given the fact that he probably was in tune to take the starting position this next year to play 20 to 25 minutes per game. I'm not sure, depending on where he lands, that would be an option at a top 25 school anywhere else. So I think from just a basketball standpoint, given that he's toiled for 3 years and now finally the opportunity hits as he's entering into his senior year to be able to play the bulk minutes, which he hasn't got a chance to do. I think from that perspective it is. But then when you take a step back, his father passed a year and a half ago. I had heard at that time that he was very close to leaving and heading back home to Texas. I think that this is more of a family decision, like he alluded to. I don't think this has anything to do with basketball. And from what I heard, there's no fallout between him and the coaching staff. It's not like him leaving disgruntled or because he didn't like where, his playing time was headed, because he was going to probably start for us. So I think this is a situation where when a guy makes a personal and family decision, maybe some things have been weighing on his mind. You got to absolutely respect it. And while it comes as a little bit of a shock, I think it also provides an opportunity for Michigan State and for their future in the front court.
Yeah, it's. I would almost put it in the Rocket Watts category, where like this guy was going to play 20 plus minutes a night the following year, presumably. I mean, certainly in Rocket's case. Obviously, Rocket left for a different reason if this is a family issue, but I was pretty upset when Rocket Watts left. I had a soft spot in my heart for him. I always was like dying for that guy to unlock it. Marble, I'm not happy he's gone, if he is in fact definitely going. I liked Marble, but I'm not like awash with emotions over it at the same time. Like, do you view this as a potentially devastating departure if he's not replaced or improved upon in the portal? Because I have my own skepticism there, but like, how do you view this as affecting Michigan State?
Yeah, I don't think that this is a situation where we should be like overly like feeling like this is doom and gloom. This is a spot where, in my opinion, after Bingham departed, they needed to go out and get a center, a defensive-minded center, somebody that could rebound and protect the rim. So I don't think that this changes anything, but to me, it should create a little bit more urgency from the Michigan State staff. From all accounts, they were not intending to replace the center position with Bingham leaving. And we saw kind of what happened last season, what's happened the last 2 seasons. The 2-point field goal defense has fallen off the map. The last half decade of defensive rebounding has been extremely poor, one of the staples of the program. And so to enter into the season with Julius Marble, and with all respect to him, we had a nice season. I think he proved me wrong to a little bit. I was extremely critical of him for his first couple years, and I thought that he had some really nice flashes last season. He's a guy that I would have been thrilled to have in the rotation as like a 15-minute per game backup. But that's not what it was going to be. It sounds like it was going to be 20 to 25 minutes. And now the staff has the opportunity to go out and get a guy who's maybe a little bit more defensive minded. And I think that what you see coming in with Jackson Kohler, if you're looking at like, well, Marble at least was given an offensive punch. To me, Jackson Kohler will probably be one of the more skilled big men that Michigan State has had in a decade. His footwork, his ability to score at all three levels. He's a pick and pop guy out on the perimeter. Maybe Marble would have gotten there this season, but I don't really see that. And I think that if you're looking at just replacing one guy's production with another, I think Jackson Kohler can come in and give you some of what you need offensively, which Marble was doing. Unfortunately, defensively, he just wasn't 100% there. He wasn't great in the pick and roll situations. He wasn't really a rim protector because he just didn't have the size or the length. And, Michigan State gave up 18 points to Joey Brunk. They gave up 18 points to Ryan Young last year. Hunter Dickinson had a career-high 33. And with all respect, that was with Marcus Bingham, their best rim protector on the team. So to lose Marble, I don't want to overstate the loss, but I also don't want to make it seem as if it's, there's just no way to replace him. Because I think that Jackson Kohler can come in and give you some of that, what this team needed and what they have needed from the moment that the offseason started and Bingham declared that he was leaving, was a defensive-minded center. And so for me, nothing's really changed other than the fact that Michigan State now is in a position where they almost have to go out and get someone, and it's kind of forced their hand a little bit, and we'll see what ends up coming, who they end up getting. But I think that this is a situation where they absolutely have to go get someone now.
Yeah, I was already in that boat in terms of go big in the portal. I mean, I was begging for it publicly before I even knew Marble was leaving. Now it's all that more imperative. Like, he better step up now with that coaching staff, frankly. You said it a few paces back. Even when this program has been its version of down, which is still making the tournament and having a pretty good year, the rebounding has always been there. I can't tell you how many times I didn't even look this stat up because I didn't know we were going to talk about it, but I'd be frustrated watching a game, check the box score at the end, and we're -7 in rebounds to like Indiana or Iowa, like these teams that we used to out rebound by 20 every time. Now those programs have improved, certainly Iowa in recent years, but I feel like you have to get the rebounding thing back at Michigan State. It hasn't really been there for 2 years. Marble, he had a lot of those games where he's like 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7. Like he was a big, Nick Ward used to have kind of spurts like that where he carries you through a lull where no one is shooting the ball well, and Marble, or Ward before him, we just go get you 4 to 6 points really fast. So I think it is a big loss. I don't know. I'm skeptical on what we're actually going to do in the portal. There's been some indication that Tom Izzo understands this. Where do you land? I don't even care about, hey, who are we going to get? That's impossible. It's an impossible spot to put you in. But there's like 50 good guys. Do you feel, as a Spartan, as a guy that wants to see him do well, we're going to come out of here with at least 1 or 2 of those top 40 to 50 guys? Because I'm skeptical. I know we're going to get somebody. I want one of the best guys available. Where do you land on that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's 40 to 50 guys at the positions that they're looking at. I think the guard position.
Not at the positions, but that are going to play and contribute with their new team. I mean, I read a list on The Athletic. I think it was 40 deep. And, like, it doesn't mean guy number 40 is going to start and be all conference. I just mean, like, functional, productive players.
There's a ton of good guards in the portal because I think it's much easier from a mid-major perspective to kind of have a guy that can flash and probably come up to the next level and play. Whereas the good wings are a little bit more scarce. And if you're good enough to move into that high major or to transfer to maybe a better team, you have a shot in the NBA. And that's what we're kind of seeing where guys are dipping a toe there. So there really isn't a ton of good wings out there. A guy that's 6'7" that can shoot the three and play defense. We saw Jalen Bridges commit to Baylor. He was supposedly take a visit at the end of the month to Michigan State. He commits after his visit at Baylor. So it's a little bit concerning. I don't know what kind of quality level guy they intend to get. If Max Christie ends up staying in the NBA draft, which for all intents and purposes, in my opinion, that is probably likely. Michigan State has 9 scholarships with Joey Hauser coming back. So to me, they have to fill a couple guys. Like there's no way they're entering into the season with 9 scholarship guys. They had 11 last year. I think 11 is the number that he's going to kind of hover around for most of the rest of his career and his tenure. And that's just because I think we see what kind of happens. You bring in extra guys end up spending a year on the bench. They don't want to spend another year on the bench. So you can't have too many guys in some instances, or you're going to see some processing. You're going to see some transferring So finding that balance between the number of guys you want to have, how many guys are actually getting minutes, like the whole world's changing. We just saw Jay Wright, like unexpectedly best coach in the college basketball in America, ends up retiring off the cuff because he's saying it's a full-time job now to manage the transfer portal, to manage a team's roster, to ensure you're keeping your team intact while adding pieces. It's a grind out there. And I think that, you're looking at the biggest, the legacy coaches that are left, and Izzo's one of the few, Jim Boeheim and him, who's going to hang on a little bit longer. So I think this is a situation where, yes, there's some concern because Michigan State really hasn't shown at least public urgency. I think it's fair that this team and this staff has always kind of run the ship like Fort Knox. It's a situation where they've always kept it pretty close to the vest. But the one guy that they've been mentioned within the portal has now committed elsewhere, and it feels a little bit like they're behind the 8 ball. Guys are still entering. They have till May 1st to enter and get the immediate eligibility. So in the next week or so, we're going to see some of the last guys. We're going to see some NBA decisions. So maybe that shakes it up a little bit. But I would like them to see just a little urgency, show, a couple reaching out to some centers, reaching out to a couple extra wings. I'd like to see in the next 2 to 3 weeks some chatter about Michigan State being interested in a couple guys, getting some visits, and it'd make me feel much better about the situation. But ideally, I think that they're going to add a wing and they're going to add a center, and they'll probably end at 11 scholarships if I had to take a guess.
Your buddy, is it? I may butcher the name. Is it Andrew Kumbo?
Kumbau, I think it is.
Kumbau. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I've never heard the name said, but he had a good.
I don't know. I don't know if that's how you say it. So
I thought you guys were like best friends. I don't know. Maybe not. But he had a good tweet last night or at some point about the Jay Wright thing. Like everyone yelling at Tom Izzo for talking about transferring in the portal and the way kids are running to another school these days, like at the drop of a hat. And his point, I'm paraphrasing, was basically like, everyone's always mad at Izzo. He's just saying what every other coach is thinking. I thought that was a really good tweet. It's true, because whenever Tom Izzo talks about this stuff, and he's the most honest guy, and he'll answer your question if you ask him. Everyone always gets so mad. Not maybe Michigan State people, but everybody outside of Michigan State. Oh, Tom Izzo, he gets like kind of the Dabo Sweeney, like, he's just a cadre old man. But Coach K's gone. Jay Wright's gone. Roy Williams is gone. These guys are dropping like flies, and they all have at least some either a rumor or they made a explicit comment that they don't like this stuff. So I think I'm kind of with you where with this Tom Izzo thing, and you and I have had it out in my studio before in a friendly way. Like, I feel like I want his second title for him more than even he does. And I'm not saying he doesn't want it. I know how badly he wants it. I think we're kind of like, we're seeing these other legacy coaches drop in his ether. They're all dropping like flies around him. The urgency, I think, is higher than it ever has been. The recruiting class is still, I like Kohler too, but this is not a great Michigan State class, at least with the little stars that we all love so much. I don't know. I think we're kind of running out of time here. So I don't know if we need to get Brian Masalem up there with a briefcase, but I just hope we do something. I think this is a critical point. Where do you see him? We don't have to have the huge wide Izzo conversation, but it does kind of feel like as soon as his son graduates in 2 years, he's gone, right? It just seems like that's going to align in that way.
I don't know. I just don't know what to make of it. I don't think that he wants to go out in a losing fashion, but the only person that can change that is him. And I think that I think the unwillingness and maybe the inability after having done it for so long to drastically adapt the way that he is handling it and the way that college basketball going is it's apparent. I don't know how else to say it. Somebody tweeted at me just commenting on just the way that the transfer portal had gone. And he said, it's noticeable. I don't know anything inside wise, but it's noticeable the different feeling that we're getting between football and basketball right now. And I think that that's a really easy thing for a fan to just look at. If you're looking at the two programs, one to me is just like, whoa, like super juice. You got the spring game. You got all these kids coming. There's people on campus that would never have come to Michigan State even just a couple of years ago, even in the heyday of Michigan State's recruiting under Mark D'Antonio. Some of these guys who are the top 10 in defensive linemen, offensive linemen, running back, like these guys aren't coming to campus if Mark D'Antonio is there. So the juice for football is just like through the roof right now. It feels like this 2023 class is going to really kind of cap off and just start the Mel Tucker, like we're doing it differently now. And then you look at the basketball program, it's like, okay, you lost your rim protector. Max Christie sounds like he's not coming back. You need to address those two needs. Where is like the urgency that you're on top of that? Like, where is the juice you bringing guys in? And that's the thing. I think this is the scariest part, that it just doesn't feel like the same type of urgency is being felt between the two programs. And from a fan perspective, I think it's worrisome. I think that they will fill the two spots, and maybe they're just going to do it on their own time frame. But it's been 2 weeks since Stevens left, and you figured that they probably knew that was happening at least a week or so before when the rumblings start going. So, like, where's the urgency to fill that assistant coaching position as well? We all know it's going to be somebody familiar, right? It's going to be somebody that he knows or that's previously coached. I'd be really, really shocked if otherwise. So what's the holdup? It just feels like they're a little bit mired in mud. And after you have 2 seasons like they did, where fringe tournament team, and you could even say last year, if they don't win that Purdue game at home, the way that they finished at 3-7 down the last 10 games of the regular season, if they don't win a couple of those games that they need to down the stretch, that was a fringe tournament team too. It was heading in that direction. And I know the Big Ten tournament changed, and the NCAA kind of changed some of the perspective that there's still some juice in the coaching staff, but you need to attack the roster with the same passion that you did and prepared those guys for like the Duke game. And we're not seeing it right now. And I think it's okay to be worrisome. I don't think that we need to panic yet, but if we're sitting here, mid-May and there hasn't been any interest discussed between a center or a wing, or we've seen some guys, get on campus to just evaluate them, I think that then we can start really saying like, okay, what's going on here? What are we doing? So
I think you said it with the distinction between the two programs and the term juice. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. I think the best way to think of this is Mel Tucker has a firm that he employs that helps everything to do with his brand, image, and his social media. He's got people that work with him, professionals, the top in the field in the country, not in mid-Michigan, that work on his Twitter account, his Instagram, and how to present it in a certain way. Tom Izzo doesn't even have a Twitter account. So you could not be more diametrically opposed. You have one guy that's hiring people to help him put this on in a good way, which is brilliant. That is not a criticism by me, by the way. And then you have another guy who not only doesn't even have an account, but openly detests the program. Now, I'm not tying everything that ails Michigan State basketball into Tom Izzo not having a Twitter account. Because I know what people are going to say, but it is somewhat indicative of the differences in the program and the connection. I'm glad that you have some concerns too, because honestly, I always feel like I'm the, Sally negative in East Lansing Spartan Nation. And, if you, the measured smart guy, has a problem, or at least some concerns, I feel a little more reasonable. I want to finish here. You mentioned Hauser coming back. I don't want to go deep into that because I think you kind of in passing mentioned the biggest thing we'll talk about. You think that Max Christie, tea leaves, whatever, is gone? Because to me, when that announcement came out, I was like, oh, due diligence, no problem. He'll be back. What percent are you? Like, why do you feel that way?
Yeah, I think 80-20 he stays in the draft. Yeah. I think he's basically gone at this point. My understanding of the situation.
Based on what?
His parents and the camp around him, I guess, didn't appreciate the way that the season went. I don't know if it's at least to my knowledge, never been verbalized by Max himself. But this is a situation where played most minutes per game on the team, took the most shots in conference play, second most on the team behind Gabe Brown, unlimited leash, unlimited shot selection. And he had a bad season. Say what it is. Objectively, by all measurements of what we expected from him in the way that his stats came out, he had a bad season. It's okay. Go work your ass off in the offseason, come back, and put yourself firmly as like a high teen pick or an early 20s at the very least in the next year's draft. Look at the guys like Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, Jonathan Davis, all had somewhat underwhelming, some flashes here and there freshman year, came back, and now all 3 of them are going to be lottery picks. Like, to me, it doesn't make any sense, but this is a situation where when you're being fed bad information by your own camp and your own family that, you're ready, I don't know how else you can change that. And it's just so surprising to me because both his parents are professionals. Every time that he gave an interview coming into Michigan State, it was that this is about the process. There's no rush about it. Just so mature. And I just wonder if just the struggles that he had impacted, him mentally or what. I have no idea. But that to me is probably the most surprising thing, just given the way that he came in, who his parents were. I don't know what they had to complain about. He wanted the ball more in his hands. They put the ball more in his hands. He didn't excel in that position. Like, to me, this is not on the staff. This decision, if he ends up staying in the draft, is a decision that he is making with his family. And if they think that's the best thing for him, I wish him all the luck, and I hope that he lands in a good spot. But if he's a guy that gets drafted, 35 to 45, he lands in the wrong organization and has to spend a year or two in the G League, that's 26, 27-year-old grown men trying to put food on the table for their family. He didn't end up making it through a 30-plus game season in the Big Ten. Like, you're going to go play with the big boys, guys that are scrapping and clawing to be able to get onto a roster for large parts of this. If you don't land in a place like, the Warriors or San Antonio, the Miami Heat, like somebody that has a great front office and also is going to be willing to be patient for 2 to 3 years, because that's how far I think away he is from being able to contribute, he can land in a situation where he potentially washes out. And to me, it's just the risk evaluation does not seem to be consistent with where I think he's going to end up landing in this draft. And when a guy makes a decision like that, to me, it's something that's not in control of the staff. They did everything possible. I thought they put kid gloves on and handled him with as much care as they could. Maybe in some instances, they asked too much of him. But what do you think the NBA is going to do? Do you think the NBA is going to sit back and say, don't worry about playing defense this time. You didn't hit a shot that time. It's all right. You'll hit it the next. Like, there was nothing but glowing praise about how hard he worked and how he's going to be a good player. And when a guy like that leaves the program, you think you're going to get him for 2 years because the staff really did, and I think most of the fan base did as well. That really shocks some of the core, and it's difficult. I mean, maybe he gets an evaluation where they say, like, you're 45 to 50, guys are maybe going to take a flyer on you, go back to college. So maybe he needs to hear it from somebody else, and that turns it. You go through the process, and maybe that changes it a little bit. But if he's offered a pick in the top 40, I think he's gone. So,
man, I until you said that like 10 minutes ago, I was thinking he was like 80-20 coming back. I can't believe that. I don't know what, and I'm with you on the coaching staff. They have nothing to apologize for. I mean, Christie, dude, how many like 2 for 9 shooting nights did that guy have? He looked to me like, you mentioned some guys, Ivy being one of them. He looked to me like a guy who, yes, it wasn't a great year, but this guy's clearly going to be a really good college player if he comes back one more year. I think if Cassius Winston had that much on him his freshman year, he would have had a lot of struggles too. I think a lot of guys would. He just was not that all-time freshman that's going to come in and dominate. But to me, I saw all the signs. You saw the flashes. You saw, the first game against Michigan where he carried Michigan State through that first 15 minutes. I don't know. What a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been proven wrong yet. I mean, it's a small sample size, but Deonta Davis, I said that was a big mistake. Most of us did. Look what happened. I guess the jury's still out on Aaron Henry. I said that was a big mistake.
I don't know if it was a big mistake for Henry. I think he showed what he had to in college. I don't know if another year would have really changed that. And I know he's grinding the G League. He's trying to get out, but I think he showed everything that he could. And that team would have looked completely different. They were an Aaron Henry away from being a very good team probably last year. But that one, I didn't feel the same. I would have liked to see him for another year, but I think that he kind of put it. But I think the Deonta Davis thing it's not unfair in that circumstance. You can clearly see that physically Max Christie wasn't ready to play in the Big Ten. So how is he going to be ready to play in the NBA and the G League? I think that's the biggest thing. He adds 10, 15 pounds on his frame. I think he has a completely different sophomore season. He was unable to get consistently downhill through contact. I think that was his biggest problem. And so he had to settle for jump shots, and the scouting report was out. He was being crowded on everything. He didn't end up being a good shooter. He shot below 30% from three. I mean, he basically had Rocket Watts stats. Like, he's a 5-star, and we were trying to tout him as if, he was going to be the guy. And I did a large part of that too, because I thought he was going to be ready. I don't think his competition in high school 100% prepared him for what he was going to have. I think having gone to a prep school for even a year like Jaden Akins did would have done wonders for his game, playing against guys that were just better athletes, more physical. It would have given him a different look and prepared him. And so he was getting some of that education his first year, and it didn't look 100% great. I thought he had a chance to come back and be an all-conference type player next season. And so undoubtedly it's a huge loss if he ends up staying in the draft and making that decision. But right now, from everything that I've heard, that is the perception. And I think that the staff is planning, the roster forward with him not being on it, at least to my understanding.
Ooh, bringing me down, man. Bringing me down. That Imani Bates experience is starting to look a little better if Christie's walking out the door too. I might call the devil back up. Tell him I'm back on with the devil down there. I'm calling him.
You have to get your ball out of the trash or whatever you did with it.
It's a doorstop, actually. It's holding my closet door, open and closed as needed downstairs in that construction site. So it's covered in dust as it should be. So if anyone is interested in a quality basketball that's never been played with, it's great. It's got some good air in it. I have a signed Imani Bates Michigan State basketball. I'm not asking for any money. Just take it. In fact, I might pay you to take it and give it a good home. So it'll be great for indoor or outdoor use. And, it's got good bounce to it. So, all right, David, I'll let you out of here. You depressed me enough as it is. You're supposed to.
We didn't even talk about the good news. We can say that there is some good news because Joey Hauser coming back, I think, is good news. If you ask me, out of the two players, you have a choice between Hauser and Marble coming back, which is the one that you want, I probably would have said Hauser. He ended up, by the numbers, defensive rebounding wise, was a better rebounder than Marble. And he shot 46% from conference play from deep. We gave him a lot of shit and we rode him pretty hard. But ultimately, by the midway point of the season and to finish, he really ended up becoming, in some regards, the player that we thought we could be. A solid role player capable of, he carried us for a game in the NCAA tournament. He won the game basically single-handedly against Davidson. If you're looking at between the two, if you had a choice to make, to me, Joey Hauser probably would have been the guy that would have been more important to come back for this roster, especially shooting-wise.
I agree with you on that, but just throwing in the whole Christie leaving thing, if that in fact firms up, I think that mitigates.
Jaden Akins season. I don't know what you're worried about that. Jaden Akins season.
I like Akins. Can one of our point guards shoot though? Hogard.
Tyson Walker shot the ball just fine.
No, okay, no, fair. But fair. Actually, I wanted him to shoot more. He was one of the best 3-point shooters in the country percentage, I believe. Right? Was he 40% or something? But the Hogard Akins combo is more what I.
Akins shot 38% from deep last year, though.
Akins, yeah. What did he shoot 9 times though? He
didn't shoot enough. That's not his fault. He wasn't part of the offense. I've had this theory, and I've discussed it on my podcast with a couple other people. The thing that makes me most upset about Christie potentially leaving is the time and capital investment that was made in him over Jaden Akins. Because if you would have switched those roles and you gave Jaden Akins 30 minutes per game and you gave him as many shots as he did, would Michigan State would have been a better team or worse team at the end of the season? To me, they would have been better because Jaden Akins, I think, just gives you everything, all the intangibles, the energy, the hustle, the glass cleaning. I think defensively, he's an absolute nightmare for guys, and he's only going to get better on that end. If they had switched roles, Akins would be already ready to blossom, and so maybe he has to go through some of that his sophomore year where he's figuring out a little bit more of when it's his time to eat because he didn't get really much of an opportunity his freshman year. But I think if there's one bright side in this, if Christie does leave, it means Akins has there's almost 18 shots going out the door between Gabe Brown and Max Christie, and Akins should get at least half of those. And I think it's going to be a very good thing for the roster because he's a guy that's maybe a little streaky scorer, but when he gets a couple to go down, he's a guy that can really score in a hurry. That Baylor game to me is the one that stood out the most, where Michigan State really struggled to score in the second half, and I think he had 8 of his 10 points in the second half. He scored with athleticism on just one of the more athletic teams that Michigan State saw the entire season. I think he has a lot more to give. I really think that we see a huge jump. And Michigan State has no choice now. They need a shot creator. They need a guy to be able to score from the wing. And I think Akins is ready and more than willing to be able to step into that role. So if you're sad about Max leaving, just be happy that Jaden Eggins is in the fold and finally gets to show it, because we might not have 100% gotten to see him emerge. And now I think that there's a very high chance that he takes a step forward sophomore year that maybe we expected the junior year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the world's biggest cynic with everything, to a fault. You don't have to really sell me on the point guards. Like, I'm with you. It's funny that we went from Forrest Lawyer and Aaron Henry as a point forward, serving as the two kind of point guards 2 years ago, too. Like, now we got three guys that could be just, to me, pure point guards and very good. I wish Hogard would sharpen the sword a little bit at the free throw line and from deep, but I like the grouping. But we'll see, man. I'm willing to call Elgin Bates for you. I know you guys, don't see eye to eye. You told the truth about an incident with Aikens, and you've been persona non grata ever since. But I'm happy to make the call for you. Appreciate you joining us. Yeah, David Klein. Man, I'm looking forward to your content this year. You're the best, and you're the best at what you do. You're the best in the Sparty basketball space, man, and it's been great to have you again. And when the studio's done and not a pile of dust, we're going to bring you back in, and we'll do it again the right way.
All right, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to seeing some of that gin.
Yeah, it'll be there for you. So, Ben Augusta, great job on the horn by you. David Klein, thanks so much. Off the curb, Justin Spiro. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Appreciate you, man.